Listen, this conversation isn't about measurements or showy statistics, it's about trust, communication, and the courage to be fully present with another human being. We live in a world that loves simple numbers because numbers feel controllable, tidy, and measurable, but relationships are messy, complex, and gloriously resistant to spreadsheets. What matters far more than any physical metric is the way two people show up for one another, the way they speak frankly and kindly, the way they listen without planning their reply, the way they ask for what they need and respect the answers they get. Intimacy is not a capacity someone must passively accept, it is a negotiated, evolving, living thing that people build together. That means boundaries are not obstacles but blueprints. Saying what you like, what you don't like, what feels safe, what feels risky, these are not awkward confessions, they are acts of leadership in your own life. When you step into that leadership, you stop making the other person responsible for your comfort and you become responsible for your capacity to receive and to give. Confidence here is not loud bravado. Confidence is clarity, knowing your limits, your desires, and how to ask for them without shame. Confidence is also the humility to hear, no, to adjust, to learn, to be curious rather than defensive. That is what creates safety, and safety creates freedom. Without safety there is no full presence, without presence there is no true connection, without connection even the most spectacular moment is hollow. So how do you build that? Start with conversation that matters. Stop treating the hard conversations like they're optional extras you'll get to one day when things are perfect. Bring them into the light now. Talk about expectations, fears, and practicalities. Be specific in a way that is kind. I feel anxious when X happens, is a stronger bridge than, you always. Practice asking for what you want in short, neutral sentences. Clear requests beat vague hopes every single time. And learn the difference between asking and demanding. A request invites a response and honors the other person's autonomy, a demand tries to control outcomes and ruins trust. Use empathy as a tool, not an excuse. Empathy is not agreeing with everything, it's acknowledging the other person's experience so they feel seen, which makes them more likely to hear your truth. Physical closeness follows emotional closeness. That's not a moral argument, it's a biological and psychological reality. People who feel emotionally safe with each other are more relaxed, more present, better able to express preference, and more open to experimentation. If your goal is a satisfying intimate life, invest in rituals that build closeness, undistracted time, small acts of care, shared laughter, thoughtful touch that is checked in on. Those routines are the scaffolding that hold up the big moments. Don't outsource your intimacy to chance, alcohol, or purely physical encounters, be intentional. Make intimacy an ongoing project you both tend to, not an occasional performance. Respect for limits is non-negotiable. Every body is different. Every person has a threshold for what feels comfortable and what doesn't, and that threshold can change day to day. The courageous thing is to accept that variability without taking it personally. If someone says they're not ready for something, their boundary is not an indictment of you, it's simply information. React with curiosity, not with judgment. Tell me what would help you feel more comfortable, is a sentence that builds bridges. And when you're the one setting the boundary, speak for yourself plainly and without apology. I'm not comfortable with that right now, is more powerful than a long list of justifications. Honesty respects everyone's time and dignity. Another truth. Myths about bodies and performance do real damage. Culture sells simple narratives that create unrealistic expectations and shame. Reject those myths. Learn to calibrate your sense of worth away from external metrics and toward how you treat others, how you handle mistakes, how you grow. You are not a number, and neither is your partner. If anxiety about adequacy creeps in, name it. Say it aloud. Shame loses power when it is illuminated. Practice statements that reframe the story. I am learning, I want to connect, I can talk about this. These are not weak admissions, they are the language of growth. Practice active consent, and not as a checkbox, but as an ongoing dance. Consent is enthusiastic, informed, and reversible. It is a conversation that continues, even in the heat of the moment, because human beings are dynamic. Teach yourself to pause and check in. Small clarifying questions like, is this okay? Or, do you want to keep going? are not mood killers, they are intimacy enhancers. They communicate care and respect. If you are concerned about causing discomfort, remember that most people prefer a brief pause and a question to an unexpected advance. The pause builds trust, the question builds presence. Vulnerability is a muscle. If you've never used it, it will feel awkward. Start small. Share a minor worry, a childhood memory, a fear you can laugh at together. Notice the positive feedback loop. Vulnerability invites vulnerability. When both people practice it, conversations go deeper, touch becomes more meaningful, and the partnership shifts from transactional to transformational. Vulnerability also means admitting mistakes when you misread cues or cross a boundary. Apologize without qualifying it, repair the harm, and learn. That pattern of acknowledgement and repair strengthens bonds more than grand gestures ever will. Also, be mindful of communication styles. Some people process through talking, some through quiet. Learn your partner's style and adapt. If someone needs time to reflect before answering, don't force immediate responses. If someone needs to verbalize to release tension, offer space to do so. The more flexible you are in how you communicate, the more your connection can accommodate the inevitable friction that comes from two different histories, needs, and temperaments. Finally, remember pleasure is not a prize, it's a shared resource cultivated through curiosity. Approach intimacy with the posture of an explorer, not a conqueror. Ask questions, notice responses, adjust. Praise what feels good. Positive feedback is a much more effective teacher than critique. Celebrate the small discoveries together. Make safety, presence, curiosity, and consent the pillars of your intimate life and watch how your capacity for connection expands. You'll find that when two people commit to clear communication, mutual respect, and relentless kindness, the rest becomes less important. The numbers stop mattering because what you're measuring isn't size or performance, it's trust, joy, comfort, and the quiet knowledge that you can both be fully seen and fully chosen. Intimacy depends on trust, communication, and emotional safety more than physical size. Trust is the quiet foundation beneath every meaningful encounter. It is the repeated evidence that another person will treat your revelations with dignity, will not weaponize your vulnerabilities, and will remain present when things go sideways. Trust is built slowly by small predictable acts, showing up when you say you will, honoring a boundary you asked for, answering a question honestly even when the truth is uncomfortable, and following through on the small promises that accumulate into reliability. Communication is the mechanism that keeps trust alive, and clarity is the form it takes. When you practice clear, specific language, you reduce the guesswork that turns connection into conflict. Instead of assuming a partner should know what you need, practice saying it plainly and without theatrical preamble. Use short sentences and concrete words. I like when you do X, I don't enjoy Y, I need a pause right now. Those simple phrases remove mystery and reduce the chance that a moment of intimacy will be shadowed by misinterpretation. Emotional safety is the environment that allows both people to be seen without fear of ridicule or punishment. Safety is established by consistent respect, by the ability to hear a difficult feeling without immediate correction or dismissal, and by the habit of returning to curiosity rather than attack when confusion arises. When safety exists, partners are willing to experiment, to voice preferences, and to retract consent without shame. Safety transforms trying into learning, and learning into a shared archive of what brings each other joy. This trio, trust, communication, and safety, matters in practical ways. It affects how bodies respond, how attention is allocated, and how desire is sustained. A person who feels mentally and emotionally secure is more likely to relax, to breathe deeper, and to be present in ways that allow pleasure to arise organically. Performance pressure, on the other hand, triggers stress responses that narrow focus, quicken heart rate, and reduce the capacity to enjoy the moment. That's why the most memorable experiences are rarely the ones stacked with spectacle, they are the moments where ease and presence converge. Beyond physiology, these qualities shape the moral architecture of intimacy. They remind us that sexual and romantic experiences are not unilateral acts but negotiated exchanges between two autonomous people. That negotiation requires humility, the willingness to ask for feedback, to accept a boundary without argument, and to adjust your behavior accordingly. Humility also looks like curiosity. Instead of assuming a partner's response as a judgment on your worth, treat it as data you can use to adapt and grow. Practical habits reinforce these principles. Make a routine of check-ins outside of high-stakes moments when conversation is easier and minds are clearer. Practice offering compliments that focus on specific actions or feelings rather than vague platitudes. Learn to ask for what you want in a manner that honors the other person's right to say no, and be prepared to negotiate alternatives that preserve mutual dignity. If a boundary is raised, respond first with acknowledgement and then with a question that invites collaboration rather than defensiveness. Language matters too. Swap shame-laden self-talk for solutions-oriented statements. Replace, "I'm bad at this," with, "I want to learn how to make this feel better for both of us," and then follow that sentence with concrete steps or questions. When both partners adopt that mindset, the relationship becomes a laboratory where experimentation is allowed but consent and care are the constant variables. Ultimately, prioritizing trust, communication, and emotional safety changes what you measure. Instead of tallying up external metrics, you begin to notice signs of connection. The ease of conversation after a difficult topic, the willingness to be seen imperfectly, the laughter that comes from shared awkwardness, the quiet longings that are expressed without coercion, the small repairs that follow a mistake, the way two people choose one another again by ordinary acts of attention and the slow accumulation of trust in daily, ordinary moments together.